What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another deck profile for Krawlers today, and this time we're going to be mixing in a bit of Subterrors into it, as you guys already know by the title itself. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the intro for this. This was something that I wanted to try out, this particular variation together, and I thought that it would be best to showcase it like right now, because after doing the pure version of Krawlers, I wanted to actually spice it up and give a bit of interesting text to it and see how things went. And in this particular variant of Krawlers, it does actually diminish the win quality of Krawlers a bit against certain decks. For example, if you were to play a pure Krawler deck, you could probably win against Eldritch. Well, you actually will win against Eldritch. I beat them quite a few times on Yugioh Pro, and at the same time I also said that decks like Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, any of those big beatstick decks as well as Altergeist would actually have quite a bit of trouble dealing with it. However, with this Subterror variant, because I'm trying to be a bit more broad and take on different decks by utilizing certain effects, it does actually reduce the synergy of the Krawlers because you have lesser resources. So if your opponent actually manages to get through some of those particular walls that you're building up, you might end up being on the vulnerable side of things. And I kind of had to learn the hard way of it because I was going up against witchcrafters, and yeah, it just didn't go well at all. I think I lost like 3 games in a row. However, that's enough said for now, so without further ado, let's just get started with the actual deck itself. To begin, we're playing 2 copies of the Deus Ex Krawler. We're still sticking to this consistently. If anything, this might actually work better in the deck itself, simply because the Subterrors itself kind of serve as their own refreshers. They'll bring themselves back, and you'll start to understand when I actually get to them itself. Moving on, we're playing 3 copies of Spine. I think this card is going to remain a staple no matter what variant of Krawler you're going to be playing. Next, we are only playing 1 Axon. This is definitely a big change for the actual deck itself, but I felt that it just wasn't living up to its reputation in this particular format, so I dropped it down to 1. I don't know if you guys actually agree with this, because with so many back row removal out there like Harpy's Feather Duster, I think a lot of other players out there, aside from myself, are actually reducing or completely cutting out their back row engine. Because of that, Axon just doesn't work as well anymore. At best, you could destroy a field spell, but even then, it's not really going to be as relevant anymore. Of course, we're still playing 2 copies of Yugioh. Yugioh is still really amazing. You guys might notice that there's 1 missing copy of it. Well, that's obviously to accommodate the Subterrors into the deck to actually fit them in, and I felt that Yugioh, while you could actually spam out more Krawlers, Yugioh at 2 was okay for me, whereas I felt that Spine was a bit more on the important side of things, given that it really did disrupt the opponents. Next, we're also playing 2 copies of Receptor here. 2 copies is still the same as the previous build. I just think it's a really great card to allow you to search for whatever Krawlers you actually need from the deck. Then of course the 1-ofs, we're playing the Dendrite and the Ranvier. Honestly, I should have included Axon as part of this, but these guys will most likely remain at 1 in many other variations I might be playing, depending on if they ever come up, of course. But yeah, for the time being, they stay at 1. They are a great beatstick still, and I still like to keep the variety of Krawlers in this particular deck, but overall, the 2 of these cards will remain at 1 for the time being. Alright, so now for the actual Subterrors itself, we're playing 3 copies here of Subterror Guru. This should be no surprise for anyone if you're actually hearing about Subterrors and you actually know about the deck itself. Subterror Guru simply just searches up a Subterror from your deck and adds it to your hand. It's the main searcher for Subterrors, and without a doubt, it is going to be the main searcher here as well for the Krawler Subterror hybrid. Even more so than Krawler Receptor itself as well. But overall, its second effect is also really nice because you could also target one other face-up monster on the field and change that monster and this card to face-down defense position. So it kind of also acts as a partial disruptor against the opponent, making them be forced to really deal with the Subterror Guru himself. So he's not only a wall, he's not only a beatstick, a decent beatstick at 1600, but he also has a search effect, and he also has a disruption effect of some sort as well. And when we get to the later cards, you guys will also realize that his level and his attribute will also come in really handy for the rest of the deck. Another card that's actually really good here is Subterror Fiendus. Fiendus is definitely one of the really amazing cards here. Honestly, this one you could probably get away with 2 copies of these, because it could actually, I guess, recur itself from the graveyard. But at the same time, just being able to negate your opponent's effects is definitely quite nice indeed. And together with the Subterror Guru, it makes for a very, very strong combo indeed. But they are the only 2 Subterror monsters I'm actually playing in this deck, so definitely quite surprising for you guys. Next, we're playing the World Armor, of course, and we're also playing the 2 copies of Reversal Beetle. These cards were featured in the previous deck profile, so I'm not going to go over them again. Definitely check out the pure version of this deck. I highly recommend it, because the pure version of the deck actually does do a lot better than this particular version, only for the fact that it will lose to some specific decks, very, very specific decks. And this particular variant goes for a more broader scale, being able to take on more decks. However, its risk of losing is definitely far higher than the pure version of it. Alright, so onto the spells. We're playing 3 copies here of Survivor. I still think this card's definitely really amazing, really well worth playing 3 copies of in the deck. It acts as an additional searcher on top of Guru himself, and I wouldn't take out any more copies of this. That of course means we're also playing 2 copies here of the World Lakes in Shadow, and we're still playing the 1 Terraforming, definitely making it a really nice synergizer, I guess, a nice engine in which you will technically have 3 copies, but at the same time the Terraforming reduces it so that you technically only have 2 copies left over. So I like this, it's a great way of deck thinning, and yeah, Terraforming, honestly, I really like it at 1. It really works well in this particular deck so far. And of course, we're playing the Caught by the Grave and also the Mind Control. Both cards are still really amazing. Such a shame that they already actually went to 1. It's very soon, and I'm really hoping that the upcoming list is going to return them back again. The final 2 spells, of course, we're playing is Wormbait. Definitely really amazing card, still the great extender of this deck. Interesting thing is, because we're playing the Subterrors in the deck as well, the deck kind of has to be a little bit more speedy to kind of recur stuff from the graveyard. In that case, the Wormbait is more important than ever, because it acts as the amazing resources or the fodder, producing 2 tokens to go into your link summons. For trap cards, I've decided to actually reduce the World Legacy Sorry down to 2 copies now. In this particular variant, I really wanted to make space for the Subterrors, and I felt that reducing Sorry down to 2 wasn't going to affect the deck too much. It's been working quite well in obviously the pure variant at 3, but for the time being, having it down to 2 is quite alright with me as well, particularly in a more hybrid version of the deck. We're also going to be playing 2 copies here of Mind Meld. I was playing it at 3, but like I said, I wanted to fit more space in so that I could put in more Subterrors, and of course we're playing 2 copies of World Legacy Pawns as well. Just because it's a really crucial card in the deck, I couldn't reduce any more copies of it. It was just, yeah, just really amazing, and it works on the Subterrors as well. So honestly, I would not complain about this card at all. Now finally, the Subterror trap cards, which are actually going to conclude the traps for the deck, is Subterror Final Battle, only 1 copy, and also 2 copies of Subterror Succession. Now, all of these cards are definitely quite amazing because they are both pretty much like the Scrap Iron Scarecrow of the deck. They will reset themselves after they've activated their effects. So with Final Battle, you could activate only one of these effects, and you choose one of them. So the first one is you could change 1 set Subterror monster on the field to face up attack or defense. So the first effect is kind of like the World Legacy Pawns, in this case, it's not really going to be for that effect that we use it for, but if we really needed to, we could. It is specific to Subterrors though. The second effect is change one face-up Subterror monster on the field to face-down defense position. So obviously that's another effect that kind of acts as a secondary World Legacy pawns. And the third effect, attack and defense of one Subterror monster on the field becomes equal to its combined original attack and defense until the end of this turn. This one's really great for defense, particularly for Guru of course. Keep in mind that this card will continue to only affect Subterror monsters, meaning either you activate it on the Guru or you activate it on the Fiendus, and yes, sometimes you do actually summon out Fiendus onto the field. The final effect is this turn activated effects of Subterror monsters, or rather Subterror cards, cannot be negated, meaning you could use this just to protect the Subterror succession. You could use this to obviously protect from Fiendus being negated, and you could also protect from Guru being negated as well, and this is definitely really amazing. But given that it's so specific to just Krawler monsters, and the fact that we're only playing 2 Krawler monsters in the deck, one of them being more so a hand trap than anything else, this is better at 1 copy. Succession on the other hand kind of acts as a searcher for the deck. So on top of the Subterror Guru, on top of Krawler Receptor to deck in, we have 2 copies here of Succession, really amazing. It will reset itself. So the first one is send one monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard. If you do, add a flip monster from your deck to your hand with the same attribute but different name as the monster before it was sent to the grave. So obviously you could send pretty much anything. It's a generic effect, so it gets rid of something and searches something else to replace it. The second effect is send a flip monster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, and if you do, add one monster from your deck to your hand with the same attribute but lower level. And that's kind of where Subterror Guru comes in, because Guru is obviously a level 4, so all the Krawlers are level 2s, meaning the second effect can apply onto Subterror Guru. But ultimately they both do the same thing, allowing you to just search up more Krawlers, or rather search up any of your flip monsters from your deck, which is definitely quite nice indeed. But yeah, that pretty much concludes it for the trap cards. Now let's move on to the extra deck. Alright, so for the extra deck, we're going to go for rapid fire here. We're playing 2 copies here of Krawler, we're playing 2 copies here of Synaphysis, we're playing 2 copies here of Neurogos, we're playing the 1 copy of Griffin, we're playing the Subterror Behemoth Fiendus, we're playing the Crusadia Avramax, we're playing the Trigate Wizard, we're playing Guy Saber, we're playing Underclock Taker, we're playing Seraphim Papillon, and we're playing Akashic Magician, and finally we're playing the Mrs. Radiant. The reason why I was going rapid fire on all these was because that they were the exact same cards as the pure variant of the deck, so I've already explained all of them, and it doesn't really affect this deck too much. You will actually go into Synapses and Neurogos the most in this particular deck, but sometimes you might also go into the Underclock Taker or the Akashic Magician and draw on I guess more links to connect the Synaphysis and the Neurogos. My personal tip for how to play this particular deck is don't rush into things. The problem is that with this particular deck, you really have to try and draw out the game, and you'll do better. Don't be so eager to actually go into your link plays as much as you want. It's a really bad idea, and that ended up costing me the game quite a few times. Had I just sat properly and stalled for time, I'll do a lot better from this. I mean, it's a dirty strategy. Don't do this at a tournament. Obviously, a lot of people is gonna frown upon you, but technically with Krawlers, you could really just drag out the game for time, and you won't be losing life points. Your opponents will be the ones that are losing life points, because they're going to be surprised by all the high defense that you actually have. So you technically could win by time just off crawlers alone. And while it's kind of unfair, it's just how the deck actually is. It has that potential itself. So however, that pretty much concludes it for today's deck profile, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe as well for more videos like this. It really does help. And of course, share this video because a lot of people might actually be interested in this as well. This one is a hybrid. It's much more different than a typical pure deck, so yeah, if anyone might be interested in a new style for crawlers, definitely share this to them. However, that's pretty much it for today's video, so I hope you guys have a great day. I will see you next time.